Hello, this is the Disaster Recovery Pro, and this is my video series discussing key topics in information technology with a focus on disaster recovery and business continuity. In today's presentation, we're going to take a look at the role that remote work plays in resilience for your organization, and that's remote work, also known as telecommuting or work from home. We'll focus in particular on the role of remote work as the world transitions out of the COVID-19 crisis and try and get some idea of what the world of remote work is going to look like in a post-COVID-19 economy. Let's start by taking a 10,000-foot view of what work from home looked like pre-COVID. Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak in 2020, about 4% of all workers in the US work from home 50% of the time or more. Keep in mind, this is across all industries in the US, not just the IT industry. The IT industry is obviously going to skew higher than this in general, so keep that in mind when looking at these numbers. It's also notable that prior to COVID-19, in studies, about 80% of workers in the US said that they would prefer to work from home at least part-time, and that about 56% of all jobs in the US are ready to work from home at least in some capacity. And just for full disclosure, the statistics I'm citing here are ones that I got from the globalworkplaceanalytics.com website. They did a study on work at home after COVID-19, and that study is informing a lot of this presentation. So if what you're looking for is more concrete data on this topic, I would really suggest starting with Global Workplace Analytics and working your way out from there into other studies to get a better sample size and a better diversity of opinions. I felt the data here was good enough to illustrate the points that I wanted to make. Your mileage may vary depending on what you want to do with it, but again, it's a good place to start. So let's take a look at predictions of what work from home is going to look like post-COVID. According to a study done by Kate Lister from Global Workforce Analytics, their estimate is that about 30% of workers in the United States will work from home by the end of 2021 after the recovery from the COVID-19 threat. The biggest reasons for this projected shift are going to seem probably a little obvious. Workplaces that had to adopt a remote work model because of COVID-19 are more likely to be accepting of continuing that practice post-COVID-19. It's gone on long enough now that it's become part of the corporate culture and part of people's work styles, and they're going to want to hold on to a piece of that. Managers out there that weren't too thrilled with the idea of going remote have not only seen that it can work, but there's also a number of benefits to it as well. Those 80% of employees that want to work from home are going to be happier, and you get a lot of flexibility in areas that you maybe didn't consider before. You'll gain operational resilience, lower costs for physical workplace maintenance, and more hiring flexibility as well. So let's take a little closer look at the advantages to having work from home practices part of your business. First and foremost, employees overwhelmingly prefer work from home, or at least have the option to work from home part-time. That's that 80% figure that we talked about in our first slide. Another obvious advantage is reduced office space expenses. With your staff not working in office full-time, you can be open to options such as having less cubicle space, maybe adopt a flexible seating model where you have enough cubicles to serve the number of people that you expect to be in the office at any one given time only, and allow people to sit at whatever desk suits them for the day. Those of you that are familiar with the open office concept that first started to become popular maybe 10, 15 years ago will know what I'm talking about there. So in a world where people will commonly be commuting for an hour or more, if it's in a major city and they have to take a train or public transportation, you could be looking at 2 hours of travel time. Work from home reduces that out-of-pocket time when you'll be lucky to get in touch with somebody. I know I personally commuted into Manhattan for many years, and that time in the subway and on the trains and the tunnels, you couldn't get in touch with me even if I had my cell phone on me. And even if you could, it's kind of limited number of things that I could do while sitting on a train or in a car. And while we're talking about reduction in commute time, it's also pretty obvious that there's an advantage to sustainability initiatives here. You'll be reducing your carbon footprint by traveling less. It's less time in the car, less time in the train, less time producing emissions when you can commute just by walking down the stairs or up to your office in your house and turn on your laptop rather than drive or take mass transit. An interesting point that I saw on the Global Workplace Analytics site is that there's strong evidence that work from home actually increases productivity. Some studies show that people waste more time socializing and chit chatting when they're in the office than when they're at home, where it seems the goal is more to get things done and move on to the next task rather than spend time interacting with coworkers that they ran into around the water cooler or in the halls. A big consideration is that shareholders and stakeholders are going to want assurances that their investments are going to be protected from future pandemics, especially right after COVID 19. Everybody's going to have heightened awareness of pandemics and the effects. So every investor is likely to be thinking, well, is this investment going to be able to continue during COVID 19? Or is this business going to fall apart because I have to ask people to work from home? A business that's already prepared for that possibility is a much safer investment, and that's painfully obvious to everybody, especially right now. Companies that embrace work from home have a significant advantage when it comes to hiring talent. Being able to work remotely means that you have the options to hire the best talent from anywhere in the country or even the world, not just the people that are in your area or are willing to relocate to your area. You can hire the best talent available from anywhere. This does have a downside depending on where you sit in the organization, and that it's a little easier to offshore jobs. For the rank and file worker, this may be a threat to their job security. To upper management, this may be a very valuable cost cutting measure. While I'd advise managers to tread carefully in this territory, it is good to have that option on the table at least. And finally, from my perspective as a business continuity and disaster recovery professional, the biggest advantage to a remote workforce, especially one that's distributed across a wide variety of geographies, is that you're more likely to be able to continue to work at capacity in the event of a disruption or disaster, and that's maximizing your operational resilience. The biggest disruption that happens in any regional disaster is the fact that your workforce can't move around very easily. Fallout from the disaster may mean that they're stuck at home and can't travel easily, or they may rightly be preoccupied by taking care of their family and making sure that everybody's safe before prioritizing getting back to work. And just to hammer these points home, before we close today's presentation, I want to leave you with a few photos of what I was dealing with in my area during two hurricanes. That's Hurricane Irene in 2011 and Hurricane Sandy in 2012. You'll see from the photos that it was not easy to get around right after these hurricanes. Some of these were a couple of days later, some of these were right after. With Hurricane Irene, I actually raced into the office before the hurricane hit and ended up trapped there for a couple of days because the floodwaters meant that I couldn't get back into my hometown until they receded a little bit. In Hurricane Sandy, there was a lot of wind damage rather than flooding, so it was a different problem, and I was working from home at the time. We were without power, and there were a lot of power lines down across the roads and trees down, so the police were restricting travel in and out of the area for a while. There was no power anywhere for miles around, so there was no way to recharge laptops and phones. So I would just turn my phone on every couple of hours and call in just to see how things were going and make contact with my boss until the power came back on a few days later. So I can definitely tell you that based on personal experience, you definitely have to worry about the people part of the problem. Impact to travel and safety of your employees' families are going to be the number one concerns. And you also have to consider that even in a work from home model, you may be dealing with power outages and internet outages as well. So there's two things to consider there. All in all, though, a distributed workforce is more resilient. If your employees are based in several different geographies, it's unlikely that one regional event, even one as big as a hurricane, is going to take out everybody. Thanks for watching today's presentation. If you found this topic interesting and you want to learn more about disaster recovery and business continuity, you can help support the channel by leaving a comment to tell me what you thought about it, clicking like on the video, And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you won't miss out on my next video. Your support and feedback is very important, so thank you for watching and supporting the channel, and have a great day.